Yeah, it's just
So
something you gotta until I see it, I'm not gonna believe it from Lando. Not that he can't win a championship. That baby steps. Let's start with leading after the first lap.
I
I've seen
got
you
you.
win a
I
race, so let's
got you.
start with the baby steps.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the very first episode of Around the Circuit, Apollo Media's newest podcast covering all things Formula One. My name's Junior. I'm here with Mark and Ivan. We're going to be your guys talking all things Formula One, races, crashes, drama, anything and everything in between. F1 is back. We're here. We're finally about to start the 2025 season. We got a few days until the Australian GP. And with that, we got the new season of Drive to Survive. Just dropped Friday. Me personally, I've already watched it all. Mark?
Yep, I've already watched it all.
Halfway through it, so I'm almost there.
All right. So, Ivan, what are your initial thoughts so far on the season?
You can tell how hooked I am. I got the total turtleneck on right now, but it's been good so far. Honestly, it's been an improvement from previous seasons. I think it's
Okay.
been something where they needed to pick up a little bit of steam compared, especially after last year with Max dominating. They needed a little bit more.
Yeah.
They got it last season, so it's
Yeah.
been pretty good for me on my part.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, last year Max dominated the whole way too, so there really wasn't much to cover last year. But yeah, this year you could tell they obviously upped the dramatics. It's Netflix, Hollywood, they upped the dramatics by a lot. So, but yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. They missed out on a lot. That's the only little P that I have in there,
Okay.
that they missed a lot throughout the season.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. Every season's been 10 episodes so far. It's showed us behind the scenes, the drama. I know a lot of F1 fans think that they create the drama for the show, and they probably do. You got to sell your product. But, I mean, I think they really did a very good job this season of kind of diving more into the drivers and everything they go through when they're on the track. Yeah, there's the drama. I mean, 2024 was a crazy season compared to the seasons we've had. It was one of the most competitive seasons we've had in almost a decade. And, I mean, we had different drivers champion, a different constructors champion. I mean, you couldn't ask for more other than maybe more episodes. Like you said, there was a lot they didn't cover. They kind of hinted towards it here and there in random episodes, but I think they left out a lot of big storylines that, at least for fans, we thought were huge. Newey leaving Red Bull.
Yeah.
They hinted towards Checo leaving F1, but they kind of left that out. Colapinto was mentioned, I think, once
Yeah.
in the whole season. And Bierman. I mean, Ollie's big story was he came in to Ferrari, scored points as a substitute for Carlos, and we didn't see him until they talked about Haas. You can't cover everything, obviously, in only 10 episodes, so I think they did a good job. Favorite episode for me, though, would probably have to be the Singapore GP episode, where they followed Alex, Charles, Lando, Pierre, and George, and they kind of gave their diary video behind the scenes of what they went through to that race. Everybody knows that race is intense, and it kind of showed a little bit behind that. So I think, like I said, they did a good job with covering the driver's perspective a little bit more, giving us a little bit more view into their day-to-day going into the races. With the races, I mean, Australia, it's coming up.
Yeah.
Boys, I don't know about y'all, but I'm excited. 2024 was competitive. 2025 is about to be insane, I think. I mean, we got the top 4 teams still up there. It's going to be interesting to see what Red Bull and Mercedes do with, 2 rookies as their second drivers. But I don't know. Talk to me. What do y'all think, Australia?
It will definitely be interesting. New year, a lot of new drivers, rookies, like you're saying. Kimi joining Mercedes, being the replacement for Lewis, who has now joined Ferrari. It will definitely be interesting. I mean, we know Kimi is a very talented driver, but I think the question with that is just the Mercedes, the car. We have no idea what that's gonna be like, and now you have George as your number 1 driver. So I mean,
Big change.
yeah, a big change.
Mercedes.
So I mean, yeah.
On my end, I obviously excitement just because it's the first race of the year, along with Drive to Survive. Everything's hyping up now. We're almost there, but like y'all said, it's going to be a competitive season this year. Unlike most seasons where you've had clear cut 1-2. We may have a clear cut 1 with McLaren, but Number two is not really figured out. There's rumors that Mercedes was kind of sandbagging during testing, hiding some stuff. Ferrari with Charles and Lewis this year are going to try to go all out to bring a constructors title back to Ferrari.
Yep.
You have Red Bull, which you don't know what you're getting from Red Bull this year. It's either going to be, especially for you, the Max fan over there, if it's either going to be a glorious year where Max finds a way to get the title, another title in his grasp, or it's going to be a year where it's going to be a lot of headaches like at the end of last year, where you're going to have a lot more races like Brazil last season, where you're going to have Max literally will himself to a victory.
Yeah. Man, just good points. I mean, for me, I think the biggest thing is you look at it and Max is Max. I mean, we could talk all day about the stuff he did last year with the third fastest car, technically. But, I mean, Australia is just such a fun race. It's the first time that we're using Australia as a season opener since, 2019? It's been Bahrain the last few years. We're back in Australia to kick off the season. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be see how things kick off. We got 6 new rookies. Who do y'all got winning the race?
I guess I'll take this one first. I'll say Oscar. I'm going to say Oscar.
Okay.
I really do think a home race for Oscar is going to be something that's going to be extra motivating. I think a lot of people are talking about Lando and Max fighting for the title, and they're forgetting that because McLaren is projected to be the number one team, there are 2 drivers of that team who have won races before. I mean, you got to remember last year, Lando won his first race of his career last year. He's been in F1 for multiple years.
Mm-hmm.
Oscar's second year, he won technically his first race, but he even won a sprint race before that.
Yep.
So you can see each year the improvement in Oscar. That's the big thing for me, is that each year you see that jump in his talent, and it's going to keep happening. And that's the thing I see a lot of people just forgetting about. It's, all right, Lando, Max, but you have another capable driver capable of winning a great race, especially at home. I really do think Oscar's going to take it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not bad. I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc. Okay. I think Ferrari is going to do very well this year. I am a Hamilton guy, so this does hurt me to say a little bit.
All right.
But I like Leclerc, and I think he could, I think he could win the first race. I can definitely see it. He's been chasing out the Verstappen for the past...
His whole life, practically.
Yeah, his whole life, practically. And this could be a year where he could potentially really fight with him.
Yeah. See, I'm going to have to agree with Ivan, man. I think it's Oscar. I've been on record saying it, and I'll say it again. I think Oscar wins the championship before Lando does. I think Oscar, he showed hints of not wanting to be the number 2. He didn't want to give up those spots. He took those shots at Lando when he could last season. I think being at home, the season opener, McLaren are obviously the favorites going into the season. I think Oscar wraps it up, and he takes the dub in Australia. I think you get a McLaren 1-2. I think Lando comes 2, and then you wrap it up on the podium. Man, I want to say Max, but I don't think Red Bull's quite there yet. I'm gonna give third to one of the Ferrari boys. I don't know who yet. I mean, we don't know what we're getting with Lewis in that red Ferrari yet.
Yeah.
As much as we want to see, the legacy continue, we don't know what we're getting yet. But I will say one of them probably wrap it up third on the podium. It's going to be a McLaren 1-2 with Oscar winning his home race. So, I don't know. What do you think? Podiums?
Man, I don't want to agree with you and go tit for tat like you did with me, but so I'll try to do a little bit different. I'll go with Oscar in first. I'll go Charles in second, and then I'll go with Lando in third.
Okay.
I'll try to keep it a little bit different. I just think, especially with the target Lando has on his back saying, I want to win the title this year.
Yeah.
It's kind of the weird thing about Oscar. They're both on the same team, but Lando has a bigger target on his back than anybody else just because he finished second place last year. So I really do think that not a lot of people are going to give Oscar issues in the race besides maybe his teammate. Talking about Drive to Survive earlier, you saw that rivalry between those 2 drivers right there.
Mm-hmm.
Even Lando still saying to this day, if I wanted to block him last year in Italy, I would have just blocked him, but I didn't for the team's sake. Same point, Oscar's probably saying, nah, brother, I took that from you.
Yeah.
Like that was my spot and I just earned it. So that was the beginning, and I feel like you're just going to see a culmination at his home race in Australia where he has to make a move on Lando, and Lando's fortunately, I hope he does do better this season at the beginning of the races, but I do think it's going to be another one where start the year, Lando gets pole, he somehow finds a way to lose pole by the end of the first lap.
Okay.
Till he proves me wrong, I
mean,
got to get out of that. But
I think he only
can.
did it once last season
yeah,
where he didn't lose pole.
yeah, it's
So-
just something you gotta. Until I see it, I'm not gonna believe it from Lando. Not that he can't win a championship. That baby steps. Let's start with leading after first lap. I've seen you
you.
win a
I
race, so
got
let's
you.
start with the baby steps.
Yeah, like I said, I think Leclerc wins. I'll go with Max coming in second.
Okay, a
I
little
think-
redemption.
Yeah, I think Max will come in second, and for third, well, I'll go Oscar. I mean, like y'all said, I think Oscar is the better driver out of the McLaren boys, and in his home race, he's definitely going to be extra motivated. I don't think he'll get the win, but I do think he'll get on that podium.
Okay, I like the Max redemption. I mean, obviously, y'all know I'm a Max fan. I like the Max redemption because that was his only DNF last season. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, where it wraps up. I mean, the season's gonna be nuts, guys. I just can only imagine the things we're gonna see. How many wrecks are we seeing in Australia? Because I know we're at least getting one safety car. There's 6 rookies trying to prove themselves. The first race of the season, I mean, that turn 1 is gonna be chaos.
I mean, we saw it last year. I mean, in the last lap, George Russell crashes and begging for the red flag over in the radio.
For me, I think it's ironically, I know we have a lot of rookies. We also got some veterans in this game that are prone to accidents as well. Lance Stroll, I'm looking right at you. So I really do think it's going to be someone like Stroll, or honestly, the one that I would personally like to see because it's happened at Australia before. Ocon and Gasly, no longer teammates, no longer have any restraints. Go at it. Nobody on your radio can stop you anymore.
I was just about to say
I really
Ocon.
do think it's going to be one of the veterans to start an accident.
Okay.
Maybe the rookies. I think they're going to be extra cautious. Every one of those rookies is going to get the bring the car back in one piece speech. So I really do think that's what's going to happen with them. But no, one of these veterans, like I said, Lance, looking right at you, buddy. I think it's going to be one of the veterans that just gets in an accident, started off.
Lost.
They're going to break the seal, and then the rookies will eventually follow
I
along.
like it. No
You know what,
love lost between the French.
Can I drop
old
a little hot
teammates.
take?
Yeah, what's up?
I think with the crashes, I think Kimi has a real possibility of getting decent points in the first race of
absolutely.
the season.
I think so. I could agree with that in a heartbeat. Man, that take on Pierre and Ocon, I like it, man. It's gonna be nuts.
I'm telling you, you take the reins off of those two.
Yeah,
it's on.
They caused enough accidents when they were teammates. I can only imagine when they're competitors. I mean, those are two of your top midfield teams right there. I mean, they were battling for 6th last season. They're gonna keep battling. They both have new lineups. I mean,
It's literally a situation where a driver who was the former lead driver of a team gets kicked out by his own countrymate, has to go to another team, and you don't expect those two to have any interaction. That's just my logic. I'm like, there's no way he doesn't take that free lick the first chance he gets,
I feel you.
and he's behind that Alpine again.
all right. So I know it's early. We're still talking Australia. We're only a few days away. World Drivers' Championship predictions. I'll start off. I think it's going to be Max. I think Max wraps up his 5th. Red Bull's going to start off slow. There's no doubt about it. I don't expect him to win a race in the first 3, 4, 5 races maybe. But it's a long season, and he has nobody to compete with. Liam's going to be up there. I have faith in Liam, as much as I hate that he took that seat from Yuki and Danny and, all the drama that went on with Red Bull last season. But I think Liam's going to be, he's going to hold his spot as the number 2 for the next year or so until he decides he's going to be competing for a championship. I mean, he's hungry. He's vicious. I mean, he drives similar to Max, where they have their elbows out at all times. But I think with McLaren and Ferrari having 2 number 1 drivers, they're going to take points from each other. They're going to win races, but Lewis and Charles are going to take points from each other. Oscar and Lando, we saw it last year. I think it continues. I think Max being the clear number 1 in the Red Bull, they're going to progress throughout the season and get better now that they've started to solve their issues from last year. And I think he wraps it up and takes number 5 home at the end of the season. It'll be a close fight, but I think he does it.
That's tough to argue with. If I'm being completely honest, that is tough to argue with. Really good points. If I had to choose somebody else to be different, I would go Lando. I mean, we saw what he could do last year. Like you said, if he could show that he can get off on pole and continue to lead the race and actually win while being on pole, then I can 100% see him winning, especially if he gets ahead early. Then that kind of forces the team to tell Oscar, like, hey, we know you want to be, you want to compete, but like Lando has a lead and we kind of need him to like get ahead. So, yeah, I think there is a situation where Lando could make a good bid for the championship.
Okay.
For me, kind of like you said earlier, I know it's rare, but I really do think it's going to be between the two McLaren boys. And I do think Oscar's going to be the one to take it over. I really do think this is the year he can win a championship. It's going to be a little bit out of nowhere. But for me, like you said, I do think he's the best driver that they have there on pure talent. He just isn't the one that has, the best luck, or I don't even want to say preferential treatment, because they pretty much gave him even treatment last year. So with the same rules coming into this year, and especially with the hot start that I expect him to have, I really do think Oscar can take the title this year. I will say I agree with you on the Max thing. I do think Max can win the championship, but there's just so much beef from last season. I mean, Lando and Max.
Yeah.
You got Max and freaking George going at it.
Yep.
You have all these beefs that have not been settled from last year. That kind of just been sitting there. I think it's going to start boiling over where, like you said, I think all these teams are going to start eating away at each other's lead. And you kind of try to think of other drivers who doesn't have a major beefs going on. It's Oscar, kind of. Oscar's the one driver that kind of hasn't shaken any feathers or anything else like that. So I think he'll be able to get the job done and get a title this year, just because he doesn't have a main rival yet. That could change. And
his main rival right now is Lando.
Yeah.
I mean, he has to win the championship, he has to come in and take that number one seat from Lando. He's proven he can win races. He's proven he's a fast driver. He's proven he has the capability to win a championship. He just has to go in and prove to Zach Brown, hey, I'm your guy. Lando might have been your guy for a little bit last season, but I'm here. It's my turn. If not, does Oscar leave next season? I don't know. Well, so it'll be something to watch, leading through the season. Constructors Championship, who do we got?
I really, you know what? This is just going to be out of my heart, not with my brain. I'm going to go with Ferrari on this one.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a similar situation last year where Red Bull was so focused on the drivers, they kind of let the constructors slip through their hands. I think it's going to be the same way with McLaren this year. They're going to be so focused on getting the drivers' championship for either one of their drivers that Ferrari, with their consistency, are going to be able to keep up. Now, I will say Ferrari cannot afford this year to have the lull like they did from, I want to say, China through like Canada.
Yeah.
Before Monaco race started, they cannot have those lulls this year.
That first part of the season is going to be crucial, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw it paid off last season in the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah. And I will say, kind of like tying in with the McLaren stuff too, Zach Brown and Stella both have their favorite drivers.
Yeah.
But they're not the same
They're
driver.
not the same guy at
so
all.
I really do think that is something a lot of people are going to have to be focused on, because Zach Brown's boy is clearly Lando.
Absolutely.
Stella loves Piastri.
Yep.
So you haven't seen any problems with them over there. I really do think this is going to be like the first year where you start seeing, all right, you can see for real out in public who likes who. I really do think that's going to be something that, as the year goes on, Drive to Survive is going to be salivating, and we're going to be over here eating it up anyway, too.
Netflix is going to be drooling.
Yes, they're going to be eating that up for sure.
I mean, it's hard to argue that, especially seeing on preseason testing and everything we've seen so far, that Charles and Lewis, they've been close. They don't look like they're like...
They look like a couple that was just born
Yeah, like they were destined to be.
Do. I haven't seen them out in public once. One, without each other. I mean, they've been at everything, like, looking out for each other. Lewis has come out and said, Charles has been looking after me. He's been helping me learn Italian. All of that. And then on top of it, I mean, they just haven't stopped smiling.
Yes.
Like, Lewis is so happy right now.
Lewis has
crazy.
even said it. Like, I'm always smiling.
He said, I'm where I'm supposed to be. Yeah, man. I think Ferrari takes the Constructors' Championship.
It's hard to debate, because especially if those two, like, if they don't have any beef and they continue to be friends and they work with each other, I think it could just be in the bag.
I know we've talked about that we could see them beefing. Charles is the golden child of Ferrari. He's their project that they brought up from, karting in. And Lewis is a 7-time world champion. How do you pick between the two? I guess you let them do it on the track.
Yeah.
But I think they get along more this year to help bring a constructors to Ferrari and make the Tifosi happy. Whereas the McLaren boys, they're going to be driving, they're going to be winning races, but there's going to be some beef there. I just really think that this is the year that Oscar tries to say, "Hey, I'm your guy," and they take a dent because of it. And I will say, slightly biased, I think Red Bull's going to progress and they're still going to be up there in the constructors. I don't see them winning it, but I think it's going to be interesting to see, where they fall with those other two teams being as strong as they are at the beginning of the season.
You were talking about Ferrari. The big thing I know, and I'm a Sainz fan myself, so as much as this pains me to say, I know that they had a great relationship, Charles and Carlos, but it was a way different dichotomy whenever you compare those two to Lewis and Charles' relationship.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was another
yeah.
point talking about Drive to Survive. One of the things that they then added was at the end of the year when Carlos and Charles were beefing.
Yeah.
And, that was one of the big things that they missed out.
Yep.
Because that was a big thing at the end of the year. You're fighting for the Constructors' Championship, and your two drivers are going at each other on track on the radios. That was just a big thing that they missed.
I think like I said, Ferrari, it's going to be their year. They have just the strongest lineup on the paddock right now. Outside of the championship, I'm going to make a bold prediction, and this is out of nowhere. Carlos is there to make Williams come back. I think Williams makes a leap, and they're fighting Haas and Alpine in the midfield.
I can definitely see that. I can definitely see a Williams come back, especially with Carlos. We saw it at the end of last year. Carlos immediately jumped in that Williams car and worked with them to make sure that car was great for this year.
He wasted no time, and we all saw in DTS how happy James was to have Carlos, even after he stood him up the first time he was on the contract. But yeah, boys, I mean, F1 is back. We're here. We're ready to roll. I can't wait for Australia. I mean, the race is Saturday night, our time. So I'm going to be going to a friend's house to watch the race. I'll be taking my notes. I can't wait. I mean, there's still so many questions that we have that you can only be answered when you see the race pace. Can only be answered when we see them on the track. So I don't know. Any final thoughts going into it?
I mean,
Australia.
I mean, like you said, it's gonna be an interesting season. I just can't wait for it to start.
Same.
I can't wait for those red lights to go away and they start racing.
I know everybody loves the big four teams, watching the front of the grid. I don't think you're going to see a year as competitive in the midfield as you will see this year. I think a lot of people are underrating Alpine.
Yep.
Their end of the season last year was, a lot of people kept saying, well, they got lucky in Brazil. There was a lot of consistency with that team last year, and they made jumps that nobody expected from the beginning of the year. So this year with a lot more clean slate, like I said, Ocon's gone. Gasly probably has to feel like the best man in the paddock right now because he finally got his enemy out of his dang team right there. He took over. He finished his team takeover over there. So now he's officially the man at Alpine, and he's getting ready to lead the team. As we see, they have a new leader, as we saw in Drive to Survive, who is definitely a character in a paddock and is definitely a character who's been somebody that has a lot of controversy in the past, but in this sport, it's a results-driven sport.
Absolutely.
He's gotten results. He's won championships with that team. I really do think Alpine can make that run.
I mean,
you got to also look out for Aston Martin too. That's the last team I'm looking out for.
Adrian Newey.
Yeah, is this going to be the year where they start making jumps and then Newey can help them from there, or are they going to keep going on their downward spiral and Newey's literally going to have to be the savior, like kind of like he did at Red Bull, where it's like, make us a car and we'll do the rest.
Yeah, I know they've said he's not going to touch the 2025 car and he's strictly focused on the new car for 2026, but I don't know, man. I think if they get close to making any kind of moves, there's no way Stroll doesn't bring him in and say, hey, help us out real quick. But we'll see. I mean, like I said, it's going to be a four-way fight at the top. It's going to be a four-way fight in the middle, I think. 2025 is going to be a year for the books, I think. I think we're going to be in for a ride. Boys, thanks for joining me today.
Yep.
Can't wait to be back next week. Everybody, make sure y'all follow, y'all like, and subscribe the video. Subscribe to Apollo HOU. Like this podcast, Around the Circuit. We're going to be covering all things F1 all season long. Races, crashes, drama, drivers, anything and everything. We'll see y'all there. Until next week, we're out of here. Peace.
See ya.